What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about what the next God of War game is going to actually be titled. Now, we've called it God of War Ragnarok, and I do want to explain this. I want to explain this early on in this video as I can, because I'm sure I'll get people that say, well, no, duh, Alex, obviously it was never going to be called God of War Ragnarok, and then some people are going to say, that's a very confusing title, or I don't really get it, so let me get it out of the way so that nobody can really attack me. I have been always calling this game God of War Ragnarok. I've always seen people calling this game God of War Ragnarok. I do believe there was a part of me that did think, and in fact, I think it's a large part of me that thought that that was actually going to be the name of this game. However, if you think about it, it just says Ragnarok is coming. It doesn't say that the name of the game is God of War Ragnarok. And now what called this out to me is Sony published on Twitter a few days ago, which, by the way, and this is a shameless plug, if you guys want to follow me on Twitter, PodcastNow15 is my Twitter handle. I'll leave a link for it in the description below. Sony, or PlayStation, I should say, they did one of those polls where they interviewed some of their developers, and they kind of like ranked, or they got them to say what the games are that they're most anticipating going forward. Okay, I guess they're PlayStation exclusives, and I retweeted this, and if you look at it, it says Horizon Forbidden West, so it's got the official name of Horizon, and there's a couple. There's one right before it, and then it says the next God of War game. Okay, it doesn't say God of War Ragnarok. It says the next one, and I looked at it, and I was like, oh shoot, because again, up until this point, I've always considered it God of War Ragnarok. I've seen everybody saying that that was the name. Now, we can go into the silly thing of, is it God of War 2? People say, no, Alex, it's God of War 5, which I always argue that that's I really don't like hearing that. I'm not going to call it stupid. I'm on the edge of that, though, because if you think about it, well, number one, there were many spin-off games, but also, if you even just take the core games, 1, 2, 3, and you look at God of War, but God of War is called God of War on PS4. Then you also have God of War Ascension, though, that people seem to forget about. So if you include that game, which I would, because that's a main game, God of War on PS4 2018 becomes God of War 5, and then this game's God of War 6. So I hate people calling it God of War 5. I hate people calling it God of War, whatever they want to call it, besides at least God of War 2. God of War 2 is not going to be the title of it, but honestly, God of War 2 is just as much not a title as God of War Ragnarok is. So again, hopefully that clears it up in terms of the, what we've actually learned, what actually led me to the point of making this video. And I know, people may consider it silly. I guess I just have to personally get over it. If you guys like this kind of stuff, you're going to like it. If you don't, you don't, and that's okay. But I want to talk about, well, what could it be? And actually, if this game isn't called God of War Ragnarok, okay, it does, I will take back things that I have said about this game over the past, 6 or so months. So one of the things I've said routinely is that I do think the game has been delayed, okay? And one of the main reasons I've said, there's a lot of reasons I've said it, but a couple of them is, well, number one, Sony keeps telling us or showing us the games that are coming out in 2021. They keep giving us release windows, and God of War is nowhere to be seen. Now, you could argue that they why would they show literally words or the logo as the thing in their ads? So you could argue that. You could argue that maybe they're hiding it, but I just say, Ratchet & Clank was supposed to come out in November. Here it is coming out in June. Horizon was supposed to come out in the spring. Probably it's not coming out until September, October at the earliest. So where does God of War even come? Where does it even go? It has been, it's about to be 3 years after God of War. I know people will say that they'll just jump right in. So there's been reasons why I've said that, but another reason is because I've said that if it's going to be a main installment game, which I do think it should be. I don't think it should be a spin-off game, okay? And which we've talked about before, and that's the part that kind of worries me now, which we'll get to. But I've always said if it's a main game, it probably needs more than 3.5 years, right? So that's why I've always said that it's probably going to come. And I said, by the way, that it's going to come out in 2022. Back when they, the day after they first announced it, I said it's probably going to get delayed to 2022. We'll see if I'm right. But that's what I've said. Now, if it's not called God of War Ragnarok, and it literally is taking the phrase that it used in the writing, which, by the way, none of this is negative. I love God of War. I love the idea of this game. So don't take it as oh, I'm just anti-Sony or I'm anti-God of War. No, this is going to be one of the best games, I think, of whatever year it releases in. But if it really is talking about Ragnarok is coming, this could very well be a lead-in game, a spin-off game, to get us to that point. A Miles Morales, a Uncharted Lost Legacy, or The Lost Legacy. That's what this game could very well be. And if it is, then I would say that it's got a much better chance of releasing this year. Now, here comes the more negative Alex again. I know you guys missed him. I don't like that. I'm not saying like I didn't want, or I didn't like The Lost Legacy or Miles Morales. I actually think both of them were extremely good, and in some ways I don't think Lost Legacy is better than like Uncharted 4. I think some people think that, but I don't actually whatsoever. But there are some really good things that are maybe better than Uncharted 4. Miles Morales, there's actually quite a few things. You can have like a top 5 list of things that are better than Spider-Man. I still think Spider-Man is the better game overall, but I mean you could argue. I think both are pretty debatable. So again, it's not inherently bad if this game is literally a spin-off game. I think we even talked about that. I feel like I made a video saying, is God of War 2, or maybe I called it God of War Ragnarok, is that game going to be a main installment game or a spin-off game? And again, I've always assumed main installment game, but if they're not going to call it Ragnarok, then I don't think Ragnarok happens in that game. Do you know what I mean? I feel like, and maybe it's, but then it's kind of odd because then you're teasing like Ragnarok is coming, which I guess, I mean, you can maybe compare it to like what you've done, like even like Avengers, like you could go very different to like movies. Could you say Ragnarok is coming, call this God of War blank, whatever the subtitle is, and it is the God of War 1.5, it's the lead-in, and then God of War 2 is literally called God of War Ragnarok, and that is the game that maybe some people expected this game to be. You know what I mean? It's interesting. I don't know if it's the greatest thing in the world. Again, I know I'm being maybe a little negative. I just don't know if it's the greatest thing that there are these kind of discussions for a God of War game. I feel like we should kind of all, because and the only reason I'm saying that, by the way, again, not because I'm just inherently negative about everything, because I'm not, is I just don't want people to be let down, right? So if you're going into this saying, oh my God, I'm expecting this God of War 2, like 2.0, it's going to be double as big as 1, it's going to be even longer, it's going to be more detailed, it's going to be all this stuff. Now again, a spin-off game can very well be a lot of those things, but in terms of length, in terms of what it's trying to get done, in terms of like boundaries, it's going to be more restricted, it's going to be shorter, all that stuff. So if you're going in thinking one thing and then all of a sudden it's the other, I mean, that, you know what I mean, that's a big jump. If you're expecting God of War 2, or let's say God of War Ragnarok, but you're kind of considering it the second main game, and it's a spin-off game, it's a Miles Morales, it's a Lost Legacy, well, again, there's nothing wrong with those games, but we knew that that's what those games were going in. You know what I mean? Whereas right now, we're kind of in this dark area where it's like we don't really know what this game is. Is it actually main? Because again, I don't know. I actually don't know. The only thing we have to go off of is the 30-second trailer, and now this PlayStation, poll where they basically confirmed, because they said Horizon's full name. If they were going to say Horizon 2, then it'd be like, well, that's odd that they call it 2, but it's actually called Forbidden West. Like, why are the names different? But like God of War, they would have said God of War Ragnarok if that was the name of the game. Instead, they just said the next one, which means they don't really even, they're not even going to say the title yet. The title isn't even announced yet. So it's just something to keep in mind. Now, what could the title be? This is where I give it to you guys, the people, because in reality, I'm terrible with these kind of things. These are more of questions to you guys. It could really be any, and that's kind of the good thing. That's kind of the, I guess, like it's not a worrisome thing where I don't really care what the name is. The name isn't all that important in the end. I do think there are, well, let me set the record straight. There are importance of names. I think, again, I'll go back to my favorite franchise of all time, Uncharted. They all have subtitles, and they all they all mean something, and they actually have some, pretty, like the last Uncharted, Thief's End, right? That is a really, that's an amazing title when you first saw it, because again, and they also have the numbers. See, that's a weird thing too. It is Uncharted 4, A Thief's End. It was Uncharted 3, all, and they kept going like that. But the subtitle means something. So again, I'm not saying like literally there's no purpose to subtitles, but I just don't think it's going to be all that important. To me, the biggest thing is, if it is a subtitle game, then it's a spin-off. It's a 1.5. It's what we thought it could be, but we weren't really sure, and then we kind of went down the path of, oh no, maybe this is a main installment game, which again, one final time, doesn't really matter which it is. I don't want people to think like, oh, Alex said that if it's a spin-off game, he's gonna hate it, or he does hate it. Like, obviously that's, and I know that sounds funny, but that's what some people say, and I just don't want to see such stupidity in the comments. Okay, so let me know. Maybe this is just me. I mean, I know I call it out. I didn't see anybody else calling it out, but maybe it was always assumed. Maybe I look really stupid because I always assumed it was called God of War Ragnarok, and that's very clearly not what it was intended to be all the way back in September when they announced this thing. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you think it's a spin-off? Do you think it's a main installment? If it's not called God of War Ragnarok, what do you think it is called? Let me know. As always, make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on, all that good stuff. If you guys want to follow me on Twitter, again, Podcast Now 15 is my Twitter handle. Would love to have you guys over there. Thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I hope to see you all on the next video.